That's David Cohn. David, good morning. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be on with you guys.
You're great, Jay. I got to tell you, this is like an encyclopedia, for God's sake. Jack Curry, he writes, and he continues to write. And it really, I've perused some of it. And a couple of the interesting things, the aneurysm situation for you is really like you captured pretty good where you were as an athlete, what it was like to be told that you had the aneurysm. And do you think that it actually went back to the ALDS game against Seattle? Do you think that was the reason why when you threw, 147 pitches?
Yeah, it was 147. The last 30 or so under extreme duress, a high leverage type of a game situation. So I can't really blame that particular game, but it was kind of a series of games in that year and a lot of high pitch counts that kind of added up to wear and tear that led to an aneurysm.
It's amazing. You went through the Buck Showalter firing, the Joe Torre hiring. I mean, you saw like the whole transformation of the Yankees, and you were in the middle of your career. And, in the middle of all of that, they don't even give you a physical. You get the aneurysm. How close did you think it was going to be that your career was over?
There was really no basis for comparison, Boomer. I mean, there wasn't like, hey, this pitcher went through it and this was his timetable. I was really kind of the first one that had an actual arterial bypass surgery. I had heard about Whitey Ford having something similar back in the 60s, but they didn't know what it was, and he lost circulation in his left arm after an arm injury. But, yeah, I really didn't know. He didn't know if the vein graft that they grafted into my artery, into my shoulder, was going to hold once I started throwing again. So that first game back, even the doctors were like, "You're fine, we think."
That was a game in Oakland, right?
Yeah, it was a game in Oakland,
and I'm sure it was pretty cool that night. And you remember it vividly. I was reading about it. So you went 7 innings, no runs, right?
No hitter through 7, and then Torre took me out because I was on a pitch count. So you can imagine what that conversation was like in the dugout. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's different nowadays now. But.
Yeah, he did the right thing, though. Especially
he did.
After what happened to you the year before.
He did. I mean, it was my first start back from 4 months off having an arterial bypass surgery. So, yeah, absolutely. I had 85 pitches after 7. So he was already thinking one inning ahead. He said, look, I'm not worried about the 8th inning. I'm worried about the 9th inning. You're going to take 20 pitches. You've got 110 pitches here, and then you still have to get 3 more outs in the 9th. And those are the high-stress pitches. When you got a no-hitter in the 9th inning or a perfect game, well, you're under the gun.
So that baseball fans in this city are passionate, they're crazy, and when the book comes out, I actually saw a legitimate amount of Twitter reaction from Mets fans who were upset that you weren't represented on the cover in a Mets uniform. Now, you of course work for the Yes Network now. You got a perfect game championships with the Yankees. I understand why you're in the Yankee uniform, but did you vacillate a little bit on what the cover was going to be?
No, we talked about it, absolutely. It was something that I thought long and hard about, but you're right. I work for the Yankees. The Yankees are helping me promote the book. I think for the most part, a lot of people remember the more current history with the Yankees, and the perfect game is covered in that book very well. So yeah, absolutely. Vacillate's the right word. We didn't know which way to go with it. Finally, Jack Curry and our editor from Grand Central Publishing decided that was probably the best picture. So, I acquesced.
You could have gone with
They could have got a split picture,
right?
One of each.
Yeah.
Or you in a suit tossing a baseball up, or like one of those things.
There's a lot of Met stuff in the book. I mean, that became apparent early with Jack Curry. He did a great job with this book. That if, we're going to have to be raw and honest here, Boomer. If we're going to cover the Mets years, and I came in '87, even though people think I was on the '86 Mets.
I know. Right. I'm still mad at you guys.
And I
you guys should have had like 4 championships.
Yeah, that's true. That '88 team I thought was as good as the '86 team. And people talk to me all the time. They think I was on that '86 team. And I laugh. I kind of go with it now. I'm like, yeah, I was there. I was on the '86 Mets. But obviously I wasn't.
You tell the story about when you first came to the Mets, though, how you were intimidated when you walked into spring training. And then you go on to describe your teammates. Now, you didn't describe them like Ronnie Darling described, Lenny Dykstra. You described him as Ronnie Darling did the first time. Gritty. He was the guy that kind of like had the attitude. Wally Backman had the attitude. The chain smoking first baseman Keith Hernandez. That was a wild baseball team.
Incredibly wild. I in recent memory, I don't know that we've had anybody to compare to quite like that group. And after the first couple of weeks, they kind of embraced me, and for the first time in my career, I felt liberated because Kansas City was really a conservative organization, and I butted heads with the Royals and their minor league system about style. You can't throw sidearm sliders. You have to pitch this way. They tried to break me and change my mechanics the whole way through, and The first game I pitched with the Mets, Keith Hernandez says, "I love the way you pitch. You keep dropping down and throwing sidearm. We love your style." And it was liberating for me when I got to the Mets that I was embraced by Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter and all of those guys.
Boomer and Gio with David Cohn. Full Count is his new book, and 20 years for the perfect 20th anniversary for the perfect game. And you're having a party on Wednesday, June 20th at Mandarin Oriental, New York. And for tickets there, you can go to call 212-252-CONE. 20 years ago. I mean, it's incredible to think about that. I mean, does it feel like 20 years for you?
It's a blur. It really is. It's also that that year in 1999, Paul Simon sang in center field at Yankee Stadium on Joe DiMaggio Day.
Yeah.
And so Paul's a big Yankee fan.
He's
so
going to be at this party.
Yeah, I talked him into it. He's going to come and make a performance of his song "Mrs. Robinson," and it's going to be pretty interesting. That's
right.
actually June 19th at the Mandarin Oriental. So
Fat Joe as well.
Yeah,
Paul
Fat
Simon,
Joe's gonna
Bernie
be there,
Williams,
yes.
and Fat Joe.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting. You bougie bastards are all doing it at the Mandarin Oriental.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Well, we actually need a favor from Paul Simon, too, because so Boomer's daughter's getting married in June, and it's actually right after this.
Yeah,
so
so
he'll
he's
be
in
around.
town, yeah.
So he's in town. So Boomer chose a song, Father-Daughter, right, by Paul Simon. So if we can get Paul Simon to go, from your event over to the wedding and perform that live. So if you could just put in a good word.
Yeah, my guys around here are coining this the royal wedding of Long Island. I don't necessarily feel that way, but maybe we can impress my compadres here, who I am inviting to the wedding. If Paul could show up and sing that song, that would mean a lot.
Well, you are Boomer. I mean,
that's right.
you're a
Yeah,
legend
right.
here.
Hell yeah,
so.
why not? Yeah, I'm a legend, all right. So your perfect day, your perfect game was Yogi Berra Day, and you recant how you were looking out of the bullpen as you were getting ready to do your warm-ups, just to hear the Yogi-isms and everything else, and see Darren Larson and all of that other stuff, not knowing that this was going to be your historic day. And I'm just trying to think, like you said, you didn't warm up as hard because it was a hot day, right?
Yes, it was a hot day that day. I knew my arm was going to get loose. I really wasn't even concentrating or thinking about anything. I was enjoying the festivities with Yogi. I mean, that's the kind of atmosphere Yankee Stadium has, on those kind of days. I talk in the book, I pitched on the day Mickey Mantle died. I pitched on Joe DiMaggio Day. I pitched on Yogi Berra Day. And those are the days when you get that Yankee sense, that it's bigger. That's why there's no names on the back of your uniform. You're part of something bigger. And I understand that people ask me the difference between Yankee fans and Mets fans. Yeah, there's certainly a sense of entitlement with Yankee fans. I'll admit that, and rightly so.
Expectations too, I would think.
Yes, expectations go right with them. But Yogi Berra Day is as good as it gets at Yankee Stadium. The way the fans reacted to him that day.
You're the perfect guy to ask this question to, and I know it's been many years, but I think it continues to this day. We talk about how when there's adversity with the Yankees, someone else steps up, whether it's Gio or Shella or Thyro or Estrada or whoever the hell else, right? And then with the Mets, when there's adversity, it's just one thing after another, and the GM's got to have a press conference, and a $30 million player's falling into a hole. It's just like it's unbelievable. So as a player, when you walk into both those clubhouses and the expectations and the history of the organization, do you feel a real difference in those two places?
Well, the experience level on me, I was a veteran by the time I went into that Yankee clubhouse, so I was so prepared for it. As a youngster, I was a kid from Kansas City, Missouri, that had never been to New York. So when I was thrown into that Mets clubhouse, and then in '88, I talk about the playoff series with the Dodgers when I I did a ghostwritten column with Bob Clappish, and how I completely just, fell on my face, completely choked, Boomer. I describe it in quite detail there about what it feels like, and some of the anxieties you feel as a player. And I know you probably have experienced this. Some of the best players that you've ever been around are sometimes the most insecure ones, and I was no different. And I detail that '88 playoff game where I just completely choked before that game because of that newspaper column, and my legs were heavy when I walked out on the mound, and I just, I clearly was impacted by nerves, and I couldn't even get the ball to home plate on the first 6 or 7 pitches. So, as far as the clubhouses go, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, they're similar, really, because of the media attention. So there's just as many media personnel that cover the Mets that cover the Yankees. It's the same dynamic. It's the same accountability that you have to have. And if you don't stand up in front of your locker and you're not accountable and you're not honest, you're going to get called out in this town. There's just no two ways about it. And you will get exposed. And I think we've seen that on both sides of town, but certainly with the Mets recently.
We're talking to David Cohn. He's got a new book out. Book is Full Count, The Education of a Pitcher. Interesting, when I listen to you on Yes, you're all of a sudden like you've become this analytics guy.
Yeah.
You know, spin rates and all this other stuff. Now, if you would have known all this stuff when you were pitching, would you have utilized the knowledge that you've gained as a broadcaster?
Absolutely, I would have. You know, if it's the same technology they use in golf. If you've ever got fitted for golf clubs,
Yep.
you know, a launch monitor, they call it, and, you know, the launch angle and the ball speed, it's the same technology that's in baseball now. And you can actually, you know, I've always been obsessed with putting spin on a baseball, you know, whether it's a slider, a curveball, turning over a splitter, understanding the nature of spin and how to do it. And now we can measure that. And I remember playing catch with Sid Fernandez with the Mets. He was a great left-handed pitcher. Didn't really throw that hard. He threw an 89, 90 miles an hour, but his ball always had life. It jumped. We used to call it jack. He's got a little jackrabbit in his fastball, and now we can quantify that. You can look at the spin rate, and there's a difference between velocity and spin rate, and that explains life and movement on the baseball. We now can quantify it, and that's something that's right in my sweet spot. Obviously, that's what I did for a living, was put spin on a baseball.
Isn't that like if you watch Tanaka pitch, right? He puts a spin on the baseball, and when he is on, his ball starts like waist high, and then when it gets to the plate, it's down by the ankles.
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
guys are chasing it. The guys are going after. I always thought that John Franco, at least when he was with the Reds, he was a master of that. It would look like he was throwing a strike. It would always end up out of the strike zone, and somebody would swing and miss.
Absolutely. You can, now we have definitive measurements on that. And you can go and you can tell when he has his good stuff, when he doesn't. Maybe you can tweak your grip and get that movement back again. You can pitch design, what they call pitch design now. You can design your pitches with the help of this technology and see if you're getting the right type of spin and the right type of movement. And you can make much quicker adjustments now with that information.
Are they talking to them during the game about that, or no? Or is that just something they just kind of leave you guys alone?
You know who they're talking to is the manager during the game. So if the manager sees something that looks like this pitcher's losing his stuff, he can get real-time information from the computer, from the analytics guys who are embedded with the team now on the bench, and hand him
so there is a guy on the bench.
Absolutely.
I thought there was a guy in the hallway screaming down the hallway.
Well, he's,
hey, Skip, you got to get him out.
Well, it's close enough. Whether he's right behind the dugout, he gets to the bench in a hurry, and there's a computer printout that shows you, yes, his release point is dropping, his spin rate is dropping, he's starting to lose his stuff.
Right, so the manager has this now newfound information that is really starting to take hold. Where did it start? You know where it started?
Well, I think the Houston Astros are probably on the forefront of a lot of this technological breakthrough type of information. The Dodgers are certainly there. You know, obviously the major markets are going to have more resources and more investment to pour into it, but everybody's playing catch up. Every major league franchise now has this information. The Baltimore Orioles are probably the last ones. Buck Showalter was a bit of a holdout in terms of some
his
of that.
name's been talked about with the Mets if they ever moved on from Mickey Callaway, so maybe that might hold him back. But do you think we've gotten to a point where maybe it's going a little bit too far and you forget about the personal side of the game and humans are playing it?
It's a valid point, absolutely, and it will come back around full circle. There still is a place in the game for the old school eye test, for those old school baseball people that understand the game, understand character, understand that human side that you're talking about. Yes, that is, they call that a market inefficiency. I think that's become the new market inefficiency, is the human side of it that you're referring to.
What is it like to work with like Michael Kay? I heard he's like a huge egomaniac. Is that right?
Yeah, Michael is he's so generous on air that he makes himself a target, and O'Neill just lines him up on a nightly basis.
Such an easy target, man, especially for athletes.
So it presents itself. There's opportunities that present itself, quite often on the YES Network.
Full Count is the book, David Cohn and Jack Curry. And don't forget also the 20th anniversary of David Cohn's Perfect Game. There's a celebration Wednesday, June 19th at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, New York. And if you want additional information, 212-252-COHN. David, thanks for stopping by. Best of luck with everything.
How about this? How about staying one more segment with us?
Whatever.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk some Yankee baseball with you.
He's got 10 more questions about the aneurysm. He really didn't get to the bottom of it.
I like the aneurysm story. and he explains it unbelievable and how lonely it is for an athlete to go through something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You wouldn't understand that.